Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining this forum today. I'm Srishti, and I'm representing Fair Finance Asia. I'm the research and advocacy advisor at Fair Finance Asia. We are gathered here to discuss a pressing issue that the region of Asia Pacific faces. Being one of the world's largest growing economy, it is facing an urgent challenge of reconciling industrialization with the pressing need to decarbonize. There are data sources that tell us that about 4 billion people, or 92% of the population of Asia Pacific, are exposed to air pollution levels that pose a significant health risk. Air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions are interconnected challenges that threaten climate, health, economy in the Asia Pacific, both in the long and the short run. It is very well known that the rising greenhouse gas emissions drive climate change, resulting into more extreme climate weathers and events. Air pollution has direct and measurable impact on public health and indirectly affects livelihood, working condition, and well-being of the population. Dense population centers in developing countries are experiencing severe air pollution related issues that is derailing economic progress as well as worsening the inequality. There's a recognition that climate change can exacerbate inequality across multiple dimensions of social identity, including gender. When faced with climate change events, these inequalities in the fossil fuel dependent economies pose a question of justice, specifically the climate justice that impacts the current as well as future generations that are exposed to social and ecological disruptions in light of the just energy transition discourse. Fair Finance Asia, which is a regional network of 90 CSOs committed to ensuring financial institutions respect rights and well-being of community across the 10 countries where the coalitions are based. And it recognizes that the enormous impact of fossil fuel on climate change, the environment and society must be urgently addressed. However, we also recognize that there is no one silver bullet that will simply answer the question of replacing coal with renewables. And it is not a straightforward solution where the social and environmental injustices caused by the global energy transition in its current stage will get resolved. Therefore, what are we proposing? Fair Finance Asia, which is part of Asian civil society movement, is calling for a just energy transition. And the few of the core tenets that we would want to remember while discussing this issue of air pollution and the rising greenhouse gas is first, the long-term planning and strategies to mitigate adverse environmental and social impacts of renewable. Safeguarding the health, livelihood, culture, and heritage of communities impacted by the continued use of fossil fuel, and active and meaningful engagement of participation of women in energy transition. It is not as if the coal combustion, which is the end result, is contributing to the air and water pollution alone, but it is all the processes that precedes it, which includes mining and processing of coal. Coal mining relies on heavy machinery that runs on fossil fuel. Mining activities stir up coal dust, posing risks to air quality in the local areas. The processing of coal relies on chemical washing, which contaminates water with heavy metals, and followed by transportation of coal from mines to processing facilities, which is also done by diesel fuel trucks and shipments, effectively contributing significantly to the air pollution at the local level. The pollution of air, water, soil caused by coal has impacts on food security because it has been reported that there is a lower crop productivity due to coal mining. Therefore, there's a cycle of crises that the communities live with. There have been some policy responses to this. Between 2010 to 2030, 13 countries in Asia cancelled coal-fired power plants projects and have introduced policies to terminate coal-fired power plants projects, including countries like Pakistan, Indonesia, and so on. In Pakistan specifically, this policy statement related to such termination was not accompanied by information on existing plants and projects, which are currently already under construction. Therefore, there is a policy insufficiency because the termination of coal-fired power plants generally does not affect projects that are already underway or approved. Therefore, that means that these already underway or approved projects will operate for next 30 to 40 years, continuing until 2050. Now, with this context in mind, there are a few proposals that Fair Finance Asia has to make. These policy proposals include that just a transition in Asia from coal to renewable is imperative and inevitable. Fair Finance Asia's research highlights that the role of financial institutions and responsible practices of financial institutions can catalyze transition. Global financiers and regulators are increasingly aware of risks of fossil fuel investments. Divestments and engagement are becoming more common. There are coal exit lists, climate commitments by financiers. There are taxonomies, both in ASEAN, European Union, and also at several country levels, that are prompting coal-related companies around the world to confront the financing risk and the higher interest rates. In conclusion, in line with government's commitment in Paris Agreement to make financial flows consistent with pathway towards low greenhouse gas emissions and climate resilient development, the government should establish a financial regulatory framework to incentivize financial institutions to become part of Paris aligned and finance a rapid and just energy away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy. This can be achieved in part by developing an ambitious energy transition plan, creating a fiscal space by restructuring debt relief from foreign creditors, and bringing banks together to create consensus on where to invest and focusing asset purchases on green bond. Governments should also put sufficient regulations in place to ensure that all companies in the energy sector and beyond are committed towards achieving just energy transition. Governments, along with policymakers, should ensure that there are alternative sources of income for communities that depend on coal mining for their livelihoods and workers in the coal value chain through sustainable development, restraining and investments in sectors like transport and refineries related to coal. In addition to this, the proposal is that just energy transition planning should be guided by a commitment to contribute to gender equality and women's empowerment, both in design and delivery of gender transformative projects and programs. This includes that assessments of all potential risks and opportunities should be equitable based on the collection of analysis of gender disaggregated data and a standalone gender impact assessment of the projects. We really sincerely hope that these policy inputs can be taken into account and also translate into some actionable agenda points. Good luck for the meeting today. Thank you very much for your time.